Harness the power of the sprint to let the best ideas come alive by fast forwarding your development process and quickly getting consumer reaction to your prototype. To make us understand on digital marketing strategies, we have Ms. Julia Macalaster, Head of Strategy with us. She is a technology professional who has worked in data analytics, strategy, consulting, e-commerce and mobile solutions. In her current role of Head of Strategy at Def Method, Julia partners with clients ranging from small startups to large enterprises to build strong and sustainable digital products. Additionally, Julia continues to focus on her startups Preline, which she co-founded in 2014. Preline is a digital focus group solution that helps fashion brands test future merchandise to gain insights on inventory purchase decisions. Julia started her career as a management consultant with Booz Digital. So there she worked on a range of projects, including working with one of the largest public companies in the US to develop a mobile payment and loyalty strategy. She attended Princeton University and rode on the varsity's crew team. Her goal is to find technical solutions to everyday problems. So dear Julia, the platform is all yours to tell us on sprinting your way to bold digital marketing strategies. So you can go ahead with the presentation, Ms. Julia.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Excited to have all of you guys here. Please feel free to chime in with questions in the chat at any point during this presentation. I will admit that the title has changed slightly to what I submitted before. So we'll be talking about agility with the big picture in mind. But a lot of the same concepts and strategies have carried over from sprinting your way to bolder digital marketing success. So you really should be able to get some of the similar strategies and methodologies from this presentation as was in the last one. So anyway, first I guess to introduce myself, again, even though I just had that lovely introduction. My name is Julia Macalaster, and I'm the head of strategy and growth at a company called Def Method. And Def Method is a software consultancy. So essentially I work with a bunch of incredibly intelligent engineers and product managers. And I know this is a digital marketing talk, and so you might be wondering why I'll be speaking about digital marketing, and it's mainly because I head up our marketing team here and our strategy team, and I've actually learned to apply a lot of the methodologies, processes, and strategies that our engineering team uses and our product managers use to manage their own process for building out products. And I've learned to kind of retrofit a lot of those processes that they use and apply them to my own marketing team here at Def Method, and have found that it's proven to be incredibly successful and has really given us the opportunity to, as a small team, a team of 3, to make pretty big strides as a company, as a limited team with limited resources through using this process. So to start out, I'll just tell you guys a little story. So when I first got to college, I was pretty thrilled. I no longer had to have teachers telling me what to do at every moment of every day. I finally had the ability to plan out my own days and to plan out my own life, and I thought I would be pretty good at it. So needless to say, I remember the class was Egyptian art history. It was one of my first classes freshman year, and we were assigned a 15-page paper as our final project at the end of the semester. And I wasn't too worried about it at all. I felt pretty confident that I could write a 15-page paper. It wouldn't be an issue, and I would plan it out, and I had a set plan, and if I managed that plan accordingly, I would be successful at writing that paper. The issue was that with that plan, I planned to go to the library. So I first went to the library, and I had a set book that I wanted to check out. So I went there, and I looked at the book, and lo and behold, someone else had checked out that book. But that was my plan. That was my plan to get that book. So I said, okay, well, you know, I have 2 weeks, so it's fine. So I can wait for the book to get returned. And so I waited a couple of days. I think it was until around the end of the week. Finally went back to the library. I was really excited to finally check out this book. I get it out and I said, okay, so now my plan is this weekend I'm going to read this book and then I'm going to write my paper. I remember it was on the Egyptian god Set. And so I get the book out. I read about halfway through it, and as I'm reading it, I realize that it doesn't have the information that I need to write my paper. So now it's Sunday, the libraries are already closed, so I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Do I check out another book? And I kind of was in a pickle, right? And so by the time I actually got out the book that I needed, found the resources that I needed to write the paper, it was midnight, the night before the paper was due, and I was still staring at a blank screen just with the resources that I collected to write this paper. And I was pretty shocked by this because I thought I would be good at planning. I had a pretty good plan in the beginning, and still I found myself at midnight, the night before the paper was due, staring at a blank screen. I didn't really know how that happened. And so I had to figure out a way throughout college to create an iterative process, a process that I could change over time based on the new information that I collected so that I could be effective at planning by not just using the information that I have at the beginning of a project, but by using the information that I collect throughout the project. So I encountered a similar issue. So this is actually how my plan was when I first planned to write the paper. And this is how I've learned how to plan over time. And this is the plan that I actually had to learn when I started managing my own team here at Def Method as well. And I encountered a similar issue to the issue that I encountered in college, where early in my career, I had people telling me what to do on a daily basis, and I would come in and I would execute on those plans, and it was pretty darn easy. When I started managing my own team, I realized that this path, this linear path of saying, oh, well, so for this quarter, this is what I plan to execute on, and this is my plan, and this is what I'm going to do, and nothing's going to get in my way, it doesn't work. And so we had to find this other strategy, this iterative, agile approach that allowed us to have a rough goal that we were shooting toward, that we had a clear direction that we wanted to head in, but we also gave ourselves the ability to change the path based on the new information we collect over time. So this is the agile approach that we've found to be hugely effective in terms of being able to hit these incredibly lofty goals over longer periods of time. And this is really what we'll be reviewing today during the presentation. So hopefully you guys find it helpful. Again, feel free to chime in the chat box if you have any questions along the way. So the first step of this agile approach to planning out your goals and setting your goals for your digital marketing strategy and your marketing strategy is to set the goals. And really, the analogy that I use with my team here is, if someone asked you, well, I don't know, should we take the back roads or the highway, but they didn't tell you where you were going, how useless would that be? It's almost similar to someone saying, well, should we focus on Facebook or Twitter? And you don't have an end goal in mind. So really the key, the start of the process, is to know those goals. What is that target that we're trying to go toward? What is that end goal? Where at the end of the quarter, if you accomplish even a part of that goal, you'll say that you were successful. And I try to keep these fairly lofty. They should feel ambitious. That's a good thing. They should make you feel slightly uncomfortable. That's a good thing. And they can change over time, too. You shouldn't feel like you have to stick with the same goals. So, for example, with our team here at Def Method, our goals were centered around our user personas. We work with specific sets of clients. And so our goals had to be centered around who are we targeting to work with and how can we best connect with them. So in order to establish a goal for better connecting with our potential clients that we're working with here at Def Method, we had to understand, well, who are those clients? And I think this applies to a lot of different industries. We're a B2B industry, and this still applies to us. I think this very much so applies to B2C industries. If you're selling any products, you need to know exactly who those user personas are that you're targeting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the demographic of the customers that you have today. Again, we're setting goals here. This should be the demographic of the set of customers you want to target tomorrow, that you want to be selling to, that you want to be connecting with. So the first step of this is to build out those user personas. And we use a very simple spreadsheet, something like this, and we highlight what is that user persona. We give it a name so that we can refer back to it at a later date. We give it a description, and then we say some descriptive factors about that user persona. So for us, it's affiliation and what entity they work with, what their role is at that entity. Again, we're a B2B business, so this makes sense. If you're B2C, this might look slightly different. For example, where might they be finding your platform? What other things might they be purchasing? What other things might they be following? So trying to find ways that you can that you would potentially be connecting with them based on this user persona profile. And I'm going to use this example quickly, and I'm going to ask you to use the chat box for this, where the reason why it's incredibly critical to build out these user personas is because when you're having these goal discussions, it's critical to be looking at your goals through your target customer's lens, not through your own company lens. So your company lens, you see yourself in a certain way, but really the mindset that you want to be getting into when you're setting these goals is how does your customer see you, and how would you potentially want to change that? So you've been looking at this image for a little while now, and you probably are wondering what in the world I just put on the screen. But now when we pull up this next image, if you could just type in the chat box, what do you see? Okay, so we have a sad face. Any other takers? Okay, so when we did this in, I think it was a 100-person event space, we had a lot of people saying, I see a young lady. Can you guys see my clicker right now? I'm hoping you can. Anyway, if you look kind of along the line, I hope you can see my clicker right now. If you look along the face, you can see there's a young face here where kind of her jawline comes down, and you'll see her eyelash kind of going out to the side, her small button nose coming down next to the eyelash. That's the beautiful lady, right? But then if you almost step back for a second and maybe look at this photo a little bit longer, you might see an older lady with her mouth lower near the fur jacket, and something covering her head here. She has a big nose and kind of sad eyes there, right? The reason why I bring this up is because this image, you were primed to see the younger woman. And out of the people who are primed, majority of them, when they're shown this picture, they only see the younger woman. And it's, you may have found it difficult if you saw one version versus the other, to change your perspective and see the other version of this image, to see the young woman versus the older woman. And so this is a difficult exercise. The reason why I bring up this exercise is because it's difficult sometimes to view your own company from your user's lens. And that's why this user persona exercise is so important, because you're forcing yourself to step out from the perspective that you have, maybe only seeing the younger woman in this image, and trying to see your company from a different perspective that someone may be viewing it from. Yeah, so that's essentially what our goal is with the user personas, is to see your company through your user's lens. Great. So then the next step that we do, now that we have a good sense of our user personas, who we're targeting, who we're speaking to, who these goals are for, really, then we can start to build out our high-level goals. So to build out our goals, we actually, at Def Method, we use a process called objectives and key results. And this is a process that's been around for a while. This is a process that's currently used by everyone who works at Google. And it essentially is a process where it allows you to plan for the quarter ahead, for the month ahead, for the year ahead in a way that is quantifiable, that allows you to track your success. And so essentially what you do is you have a couple different objectives, and those objectives are essentially your high-level goals. At Def Method, we fill these in for the quarter on an individual basis, and we fill them in as a company on an annual basis. Different companies use different strategies for this. So for example, you can be filling in your objectives and key results on a monthly basis and tracking them in that sense. So the time isn't really as important. But really, the goal of this is to have your objectives, which are your high-level goals. So in this example, we're saying we want to increase your CPA for user persona X as our goal. So we're saying I would like to, decrease my cost per acquisition. I would like to decrease my cost per acquisition for this specific user persona. That's my overarching goal for this quarter. Then alongside that, we have our key results. And our key results are the results that are quantifiable that I can go back to at the end of the quarter and see how successful I was or not. The key with the key results is that they are meant to be challenging. It's good to challenge yourself and to push yourself to do better. And typically, I encourage my team to write down key results where they think they can get about 75% there. They should be writing down key results where they say, I probably will not be able to do 100% of this quantifiable result, but I should be able to get, I'm hoping I can get almost all the way there. So for example, if you want to, increase organic click-through, make it a little bit higher. Make it that number that makes you just slightly uncomfortable. Push yourself to go further in the next quarter. And so these key results should be based on any metrics you currently have on hand. So if you have metrics for organic click-through today, you should be basing your key result off of that. It shouldn't just be a random number that you're putting on there. But it allows you to kind of track your success over the quarter. So this is our high-level goal-setting exercise, again, that we do at the beginning of every quarter. And I'd be happy to share the spreadsheet that we use for tracking this if anyone's interested. So that's step number one. We just set our goals. We're at the start of the quarter. We have a good idea of our goals. We have quantifiable key results that we're trying to move toward. And our next step in the process is to build a roadmap. And so what that looks like is on a monthly basis, and I'm going to start to get more granular and granular. So we're starting on the quarterly basis, just based on how we do it here at Def Method. We're now going down into the monthly basis. So I'm planning out my month now. So when I'm planning out my month, I'm planning out a roadmap for my month ahead, and I'm building out this roadmap that I'm going to be tracking for the month. And so what I do in building out, oops, sorry, I thought I had a slide there. What I do for building out this roadmap is that I essentially take those key results and I prioritize them over time. So I look at what do I need to accomplish at every point along this month in order to hit some of those key results that I've now highlighted as being critical to my success for hitting those high-level goals that I've set for myself this quarter. I typically just enter them into the calendar so that I have discrete checkpoints that I need to hit so that I can have check-in points. So I make sure that it doesn't just become an exercise of on Friday I set my goals and I've forgotten it already 2 weeks later. It really should feel like you are tracking on a monthly, on a weekly basis, how you are getting closer to hitting those goals that you've set for yourself. So planning out your monthly calendar is step number one. And then step number two, getting more granular, is planning out your week. So you have a good sense of what you're going to focus on this month. You have a good sense of those target goals, those quantifiable results for the quarter. And now you're starting out your week, and this is where things can get busy because emails, I'm sure as many of you guys feel, are nonstop. And there are lots of little tasks that can get in the way of the bigger goal. You can always keep yourself busy with small tasks and miss the big goal. And so I do think it's imperative on a weekly basis to make sure that you're constantly checking back in. What were those goals? How am I getting closer to them? What time this week am I putting in to get one step closer to that key result that I thought was lofty, but I might be able to hit now because I've put in the time on a weekly basis to get there. And so our weekly planner looks something like this. It's very simple. Again, it's in Google Sheets. We make a new one every single week. My whole team makes it, and we share it with everyone, so we all know what everyone else is working on and focusing on for the week. And so the main point about this weekly planner is that it starts out on the left-hand side with your user personas and your goals. So it brings you back to those goals that you've highlighted at the beginning of the quarter. It reminds you of that destination that you're heading toward, right? You're trying to find the directions to get there. This reminds you of this is where we're going. Now we just have to figure out how to get there. And we have to figure out what direction we should drive in this week. So then on the weekly basis, on Monday morning, I do this every Monday morning, I say, okay, well, what are my priorities this week that I'm going to try to focus on that relate back to these goals that I've highlighted for myself? Very simple. I highlight maybe 5 or 6 weekly priorities for each one of those goals. And then on a daily basis, I'll start to drag over those weekly priorities and plop them into certain days throughout the week so that I know I can hit all of those weekly priorities based on my week. And it also allows you to look at when do I have time to put in to make sure I am reaching those goals. So you might say, I'm in an all-day client meeting on Wednesday. I don't have time to work on decreasing my CPA because I'll be with a client all day on Wednesday, and that's fine. But looking at your weekly planner in this way allows you to make the time for it. Say, okay, I'll put in the time on Monday and Tuesday. I'll put in a little bit extra time because I know I won't have the time to work on it on Wednesday. Great, so we are now kind of getting around our iterative process, and we've whittled down from high-level goals. We then have our monthly calendar, so we have a good sense of the direction we're going in. We have our weekly planner that says this is exactly what I'm going to be working on this week, and then this is exactly what I'm going to be working on today. And we start to execute on some of those items some of those deliverables that will directly apply to getting us closer to those OKRs. So now that we've put in that time, we've kind of put in the work to drive the car up the hill, get to at least close to our end destination. Now what we need to do is measure our results. And this really, to me, is imperative in the planning process. This is exactly what I didn't do when I got stuck in college with the wrong book, right? I just kind of like kept going down in the wrong direction, not getting any closer to my destination because I wasn't measuring my results and seeing if I needed to correct course. So measuring results allows you to see, do I need to correct course? Am I going down in this direction? Am I spending money on Facebook ads and they're not returning any revenue, and maybe I need to try a different channel? So it's pulling all of the results from all of that work you've put in. Make sure that all of the work you do put in is quantifiable. Everything is quantifiable. Your time is money. That's quantifiable. So if you're spending hours writing a blog post because you said that blog posts are going to increase conversion, then you should be tracking how much time you're putting in and then how many click-throughs are coming to your website from your blog. Everything should be quantifiable. So collect those results, measure those results, and then have a retrospective on what worked, what didn't, and how you can apply those learnings to the next week. So that next week, you're even better informed and you're heading in an even better direction to try to get to that end destination. So this is an engineering agile process, retros and IPMs. Retros are short for retrospectives, and retros are essentially we typically have them at the end of the week, and we draw a sailboat on the whiteboard, and we say, okay, so this week, what activities, what things did you find pushed the project forward? What things were the wind for this project? They really helped us move forward in the right direction. And what things slowed us down? What things were kind of a drag? Didn't really help the project. Those things go near the anchor. And then if you really want to get fancy with it, you can draw rocks and outline the risks that you're identifying as the potential future. So this is a process where you kind of highlight what helped, what didn't, and then you outline what you're going to do next week to promote the things that helped you be productive and to address the things that slowed you down. This is a really, really productive process, and it's important to do it with your team, especially when you're working with a team. The other process, an IPM, is an iterative planning meeting. And what this is it's at the beginning of the week, and it's when you say, okay, based on our learnings from last week, based on the results that we collected, let's analyze the results that we collected, let's analyze the data, let's see how our time invested last week did, and if it returned the results we expected. If it did, let's put planning on the calendar for this week to make sure that we're doing more of that. If it didn't, let's address it and maybe try something else this week. So it's your plan, it's kind of the precursor to building out that weekly calendar. And then finally, making sure that you're comfortable refactoring. So in engineering, the term refactoring essentially means let's say you had a feature that you wanted to build, and you built it first, and the logic somewhat made sense in the beginning, but then you look back on it and you see, man, it's kind of repetitive. It's repetitive, the logic that I'm using here, and this could be done in a much simpler and cleaner way. That's refactoring. And so how can we refactor our own process? How can we iterate on our own goals, use the knowledge that we've collected to get faster in producing the results that we want, and to ultimately move away from the things that are not helping us, so that we ultimately are helping those, we are hitting those goals that we've set for ourselves. So again, with the library example, I should have refactored, I should have learned when that book wasn't available, that there were other ways of going about writing that paper. There were other ways of collecting my resources, rather than the one plan I had set for myself. Being comfortable with that change and being comfortable with somewhat uncertainty, but also using the information at hand to make smart decisions for how to move forward. So that's our agile approach to managing our marketing team here that we found to be extremely effective. Again, it's just setting your goals, building your roadmap, having your weekly plan, measuring the results from that work that you're putting in, and then refactoring. And ultimately, what that delivers is it allows you to set your plans at the start and deliver a result that really is tangible and should be a deliverable result that is more than you could have even thought possible when you initially put together that plan. So throughout this talk, I relied heavily on these three books, which are fantastic books: Agile Estimating and Planning by Mike Kuhn. This is the book that talks all about IPMs, retros, the agile planning process. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's where I got the idea for the weekly planner. He actually talks a lot about planning on a weekly basis and setting your goals. He actually talks about personal goals and business goals as well. And then finally, the book Sprint, which again is by the Google Ventures team, Jake Knapp, and talks about their process for solving big problems through a process called a sprint. So thank you so much for your time. Feel free to enter questions into the chat field. I would be happy to share my materials, so I'll make sure that all of you get access to those after this talk. Yeah, any questions?
Okay, the participants, like whoever has some other queries also, you can post your questions in the chat, so that Miss Julia is available right now here. So you can engage with her for 5 more minutes, so that you can get clear with the questions, whatever you have queries right now based on the digital marketing strategies. Okay, so Mike Kalo have another question. So the challenges of creating a digital marketing strategy. What are the challenges he is asking for?
Yeah, I think one big challenge is when you're first starting out and you don't have the past experience to build your goals off of. So it's easier building key results that are tangible and that you feel confident that you're building the right key results when you start to collect data. When you don't have data to make those decisions off of, it can be more challenging. But that's why I would encourage you, if you're just starting out, to really kind of feel comfortable trying multiple different channels and make sure that you have that clear goal in mind based on those user personas and based on their lens. So there's a difference between, the expression goes, throwing spaghetti on the wall and just seeing what sticks. I'm a fan of educated guessing. So in the beginning, you may have many unknowns, but rather than just saying, oh, well, we should use whatever technology is the newest, hottest technology because everyone else is doing it, making informed decisions based off of your user personas, the lens that you want them to view your company through, and how your goals align with that, then I think it does become a bit more easy creating those initial goals that you can work toward, and knowing the channels that you should try in the beginning.
Okay. So participants, I can go ahead for next other questions also. Okay, here come the next question, Ms. Julia. How to identify the demand on the online audience?
Daryl, do you mind providing a little bit more context? I mean, everything is trackable online. I'm a big fan of heap analytics. Google Analytics is, very easy. Heap Analytics is fantastic because it allows you to track the user path through your website. So that can be helpful in terms of being able to identify where your users, once they get to your website, where they're navigating to, where they're spending most of their time, and what content on your website they're spending the most time with, which means they find the most valuable typically.
Okay, so participants, like whoever have any other queries, kindly post your questions on chat box, and then Ms. Julia, you can also kindly share your official mail ID, so doubts in digital marketing strategies also. So that will be very useful for the participants to get to know it about the new idea informations. You can just kindly share your official mail ID so that they can make a note of that in a chat box.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, in the chat bot. Okay. So you want?
Okay.
I'll share my LinkedIn here. That's typically the best place to reach me at. I have to grab the URL really quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Julia. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your LinkedIn account. So, Miss Julia, that's a wonderful presentation on digital marketing strategy. That's very much informative for us and for the participations also. Thank you so much for your presentation, giving up in the second day of the conference in the second session. Thank you, Miss Julia. That's wonderful. It's nice to see you. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.
Yeah. Thank you so much.